little bit of time to work on the Triumph. So we're going to go a little bit farther with this rear fender, try to strip it down a little bit more to bare metal, and then either clear coat it, distress it some way. But the thing I really want to get done today is put the rear tires back on now that I have the new ones mounted on the rims, so that we can get the spacing and everything right, and cut and re-weld the mount so that we can get the fender exactly where it's supposed to be. And if we have time after that, we might get into the seat, but we'll see. So here are the tires all mounted. Here's the rear tire. Again, this is a 4.5 by 18 Firestone Deluxe Champion. And this is, I thought it was a 3.5, but I actually ordered the stock size, which is 3 1/4, 19 for the front tire. I remember doing that now because I wanted to kind of emphasize a little bit fatter look on the rear tire than the front. So I ended up just having these mounted by a local tire shop here in Texas for 2 reasons. One, just honestly just a restraint on time for me. It was a lot easier for me to just drop them off before work, pick them up on the way home. But I'm actually really glad I did, because I got to know the guy pretty well that owns the shop I took him to, and he's been mounting tires for 30 years and said that these are literally one of the worst he's ever had to do. Because this rear tire had 2 tire keepers, I think he called them, rim stays, something like that. I'm not terribly familiar with what those are, but basically what he was explaining to me is it goes on the inside of the rim and actually holds the tire in place. And I guess they're more common on like off-road, like motocross kind of bikes, because you're going to be tearing the bikes up in dirt, and I guess there's more of a likelihood of the rim slipping within the tire. After talking with him, he said they're really not necessary on the street. Most modern bikes don't have them anymore. And because I did go up a little bit in width, this tire will be technically a little bit tighter on the wheel than even a stock tire would be. So we ended up eliminating those, but that was a huge pain, he said. He actually had to cut them off and gave them back to me in pieces. He had to go in there with a an angle grinder and get them out. So it was worth the investment just to have him do it, because I would have been fighting with it for 2 days. So yeah, they're all mounted up. I'm gonna go ahead and throw them back on the bike now, so that we can get the fender in its final position and measure the mounts and try to get them cut and put into place. So now that I have this rear tire on, it looks like the stock length of this support is actually going to work pretty well. So the tire's not centered in the frame right now. I need to take a spacer out of this side and probably move it over to this side and shift the tire over just a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch or so, for it to be dead center in the frame. But as far as height on this goes, I have a bolt running through the mount down here, and then this bolted in. I know it's probably hard to tell, but it's going to float, especially when I get the mount done on the back here. It's going to float probably 1/4 of an inch above the tire, which again, if you think about it, I don't need any more clearance than that, because it's a hardtail. There is going to be no movement whatsoever. So, not like a normal bike where you'd worry about the tire getting up and hitting the fender. Literally, they're connected, so there's no, I want it to be super clean and fit right above it. So I thought I was going to have to modify the length of these, but it doesn't look like I'm going to have to. So I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to keep hitting this with my SCT. So I'm going to take off this finishing drum that I have on there and actually throw on the abrasive drum and really try to knock some of that old chrome finish and stuff off of there, and see if I can't get down to some fresher metal to work with. So then we can then age it and patina it and make it look like the tank. got it roughed down. I ended up hitting it with the stripping drum, and then I even went a step further and hit it with 100 grit sandpaper just to knock down as much as I possibly can. So I think it's down enough to a bare metal. I want to try some things that you guys suggested. One thing that I've seen before and then somebody suggested it and reminded me of it was linseed oil. So supposedly that's going to like darken it up and kind of, you know, bring out some of the imperfections, which is what I want. Again, so it'll match this tank. So I don't have any of that right now, but I do need to go get some. So I will, you know, obviously keep you guys in the loop on when I get some of that and kind of how that part turns out. But I have a little bit more time and I want to work on this bottom mount. So like I said a little while ago, this top mount is going to work the length that it is. And I went ahead and see, I threw the front tire on so I can kind of just make sure I have the proportions right. I also moved that spacer over to perfectly center the rear tire, which fingers crossed is where it needs to be once the engine is in, to have the chain line up. If not, we'll have to go back in and adjust all this stuff, but I'm pretty confident it should run pretty much in the center. I know some bikes tend to be offset a little bit to the right, but we're going to run it like this and see, and leave myself a little bit of flexibility just in case we have to kind of go back and adjust it once the motor's back in. But what I'm thinking for a lower mount is there's these two holes very similar to the mount that's on the top. I'm thinking about, I'm going to like make a flat piece with two holes in it that's kind of nicely rounded over and then bent to match the contour of this fender. So that I can basically have bolts that go through that plate and through this. And then I'm going to have, and this is going to be a little bit higher than it is now, pretty much even with this lower mount here. So what I'm thinking is take a bar, maybe like this, maybe one of my little bit thicker bars just to kind of match something maybe similar to this. Notch it so it perfectly kind of mates up to this, run straight, weld it to that flat piece, and then weld it here. So then that piece will be permanently mounted, and then I can just unbolt the fender from that to remove it if I ever need to. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm going to get to work on that, and if I don't have the right size, the right diameter pipe that I'm looking for, I may have to kind of go out and get some tomorrow or the next day. But I'm going to go ahead and get to work on at least that flat piece so we can match the contour, get the holes drilled, and then I'll let you guys, bring you guys back. So I got my little piece fabricated up. You can see how it has a bend in it and the two holes. That perfectly matches the two holes already in the fender. So I'm at a kind of a stopping point, but what it looks like I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to have a straight piece that I'm going to make out of this tube, which is a little bit smaller than the tube of the frame itself, but that's totally fine. So it's going to be a little straight piece about an inch or so long, that one side will be kind of contoured to fit that. We'll TIG weld around that, and then the other one will be notched to match that tube, and then of course we'll TIG weld that on as well. So that's kind of, you can see if I can hold it this way. Camera, work with me here, please. There we go. So, kind of like that, welded straight to the back of that tube. So I'm kind of at a stopping point right now because I need to go get some hardware. I want to get new hardware for this, and of course same hardware probably for this back piece, so that I can bolt this on in its kind of permanent location, have it nice and tight to hold the fender there. bolt, you know, this piece we're going to weld to the fender, and then I can get a real perfect measurement and start to cut and fit and grind and get all the contours and everything right on that connection piece before I weld it. So I just need to get that hardware so I can mount everything up, but it should be good. This piece should be pretty vertical, which is what I was looking for as well. And then the fit on the fender will be nice and close to the tire, and it'll kind of flare out and have a little bit of clearance. I think it's going to look really good. So yeah, that's going to do it for tonight. But I'm just going to keep making this into a longer video for you guys, just so we can kind of wrap up this portion of the project, then move on to the next thing in the next video. So I'll be back hopefully tomorrow. Hey guys, new day. I picked up some hardware so that I got a bolt going through here, got some new bolts going through here. Basically I needed the hardware so that I can kind of get this permanently mounted from here and get my length of my mount down there. I also picked up a few different things I'm trying out on this spare kind of worst condition fender over here. So we have just like a clear lacquer. Let me try to see if I can get it to focus on that guy. So we have just like a clear lacquer over, you know, a brushed part here. We have a matte clear over this part, and then this last one I'm actually soaking it with evapor rust, because I remember when I removed some rust off of some other things that it left kind of like a dark I guess coating or film or whatever you want to call it, but it actually, if I remember correctly, has a very similar look to what I'm going for. I also did, from a recommendation from one of you guys, pick up some linseed oil as well, which seems to basically not really have much of a reaction. It just basically kind of prevents rust and acts as a coating. So I'm going to give these things a few minutes, maybe longer, on the evapor rust to see what kind of effect it has. Check those three out, see if any of them are the way I'm you know, kind of the look I'm going for. If not, we'll remove it or sand down another spot and kind of keep doing a trial and error thing until we figure out what we're doing. So right now I'm going to be working on getting this mount done. I only have a little bit of argon left for my TIG welder, and I pulled a noob move and did not close my mix container for my MIG welder, so that's completely empty. And of course it's like 10 till 5 on Friday afternoon, and the welding supply place doesn't open up again until Monday. So I'm going to try my best to get this done with the gas I have, and hope that that's not the reason I have to postpone it. So let's get to work on this. Got the mount coming along here. See if you can see. There we go. So I kind of TIG welded around that back side. Obviously haven't done the welding on this side yet, just kind of mounting it up. I need to do a lot of finish work on those welds. I'm a little rusty. And then the bracket looks like it bent just a little bit. You can kind of see the gap over there from the heat. So I need to just kind of bend that back so it'll sit nice and flush against the fender there. And then got it notched out pretty well. Might need to notch it a little bit more so it fits nice and tight. Then we're going to run a nice weld all the way around there, and we'll be good to go. So that's kind of the mount, how it's going to look. I think the overall spacing is going to be really good. So got a little bit of clearance on the back. Pretty much exactly what we need to have a nice even gap all the way around. It's probably at the maximum about 1/4 of an inch or so, but then you got a good maybe an inch, 3/4 of an inch out on the top there, and then again kind of the same deal on this side. So we got it nice and centered in the bike too. Got the mount centered. You can see my little Sharpie mark there. So yep, that's going to be how we do it. So I'm going to have to stop for tonight, but I'll be right back out here in the morning to work a little bit more on this finish welding and getting this thing a little bit farther along. All right, I got myself to a good stopping point for now. Well, I got forced into a stopping point, so I started to kind of weld on that mount, and I started running out of gas, and it started kind of spitting and getting pretty ugly. So gonna have to wait until Monday to go get some more gas for both my MIG and my TIG. But you can kind of see the mount's coming along nicely, so obviously that'll be welded around, and then I'll take a lot of time grinding it and making it real nice and smooth, so it looks like it was always supposed to be there. So pretty excited about it. I think I decided for the fender for a finish, I'm just going to kind of lightly dust it from a distance with some black paint, and then kind of rub it a little bit just to kind of get this black kind of smudged look, then matte clear it, and I think that's going to turn out really nice. So one thing I haven't really mentioned on this bike yet that I've decided to do is I'm going to do like little brass accents on it, mainly because of this part of where the tank was kind of brazed, you know, who knows how long ago, and it's kind of exposed, and I really like the way that looks. So I'm kind of toying around. I don't want to do anything too crazy, just like maybe 3 or 4 different things, just to kind of tie it all in together. So what I'm thinking is I may do this in a brass look. I kind of been trying it out on this extra one I have over here. So I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Probably not well at all, but I've kind of painted it with a brass and then kind of distressed it and aged it a little bit with the black paint. And I think it looks pretty good. I'm about 60% sure I like that at the moment. I may just keep it chrome because I'm still going to have some chrome on the front of this bike. You know, on the forks, this part's going to be chrome. At least this part of the headlight is going to be chrome. So I don't mind having something kind of chrome colored in the back, especially since our fender is now going to be matte. So I might do that. The seat, I have gold springs for the seat that I'm going to distress and sand down and you know, do the little black treatment on it and stuff and make them look more brass, because I definitely don't want them to be shiny gold. So I think if I could have a nice aged brass looking spring, that'll be really cool. Might figure out something to do on the engine that's brass, and then I'm thinking for something up here, maybe the headlight ring, just the ring do brass. I'm not sure exactly, just kind of messing around with it. Want to bring in some of this brass accents from the tank. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the kind of process of figuring out how to do a custom fender and kind of retrofitting a fender that's meant for another bike. So next steps are going to be obviously finish that up, and then I'll be moving on to the seat, which we're going to have to build a custom mount for the front of it because I don't like the one that came with the seat, and then weld on the 2 mounts for the springs on the bottom here. Again, I'll need more welding gas for that, so that's going to wait until later or the beginning of next week. After that, we're going to go probably figure out what I want to do with the wheels, which I'm thinking about just painting them, because I like the way that's looked on my previous bikes. Then I will probably start on the electronics box. I need to get all the fabrication done so we can start to do some painting and finish work, and then work on getting it all put back together. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to go to the website, classicoctane.com. Shirts are available on there. I do have stickers on the way that should be here hopefully this week, so keep an eye on that. Follow me on Instagram if you don't already, @classicoctane, and I'll see you guys in the next one.